Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. We crack the code so you don't have to.
Welcome to the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. I'm here with a delightful guest, Joanne Richardson. Welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
You're the president of Gelwin's Group.
I am.
Tell me about the organization then. But you have an absolutely amazing life story that I know we'll get to later. And I am so delighted to have you on. We were introduced by a mutual friend. And when I've looked at, so there was a documentary produced on you that I've watched. And just, it's one of the most touching documentaries and analysis of your life that I think I've seen in a very long period of time. But we'll get there. And so what is your organization?
Gelwin's Group is a consulting group, and I consult with smart building technology, any kind of renewable energy. I find myself examining new products that are coming into the United States to see if they would really have a chance of adaptation.
Right.
So it's a passion that I love. I'm not going to lose my love for technology and my love for, expanding what we're doing here in the nation by becoming more energy conscious.
Yes.
So, to decide to be a consultant on my own, taking all my knowledge from years, and I have electrical knowledge, I have HVAC knowledge, I have smart building technology, microgrid technology, and to take that under one roof and advise my clients is wonderful.
Well, how did you get in that space? You speak about microgrid and you became really technical on me, but tell us what that is. How did you get into that space? I know your background in history. For those that are listening in, you've had an incredible background in that construction and hotel and hospitality industry. But tell us how you got into that industry and what kinds of services that you provided in that industry before creating your own business.
Well, I started in the HVAC industry by an ad in the Dallas paper that said HVAC maintenance sales, no experience necessary. And that was with York International at the time.
Wow.
And I went in and got the job.
So York is a big company.
It was a very big global company. I mean, one of the masters of HVAC next to Willis Carrier. Absolutely. And within 5 months, I had sold a very large telecommunications account that was national, very large, 60,000 sites.
60,000?
60,000 growing sites. And it was about 5 months later that I was pulled into strategic accounts at York International and really started understanding the business better, selling equipment, services, preventive maintenance to the clients.
Now, for those that are listening in, tell us how you closed that deal. What was the secret behind closing a deal that big, being so new to that organization and to the industry?
Having absolutely no fear.
Okay.
No fear. I had sold, there's 554 sites in the Dallas area. And remember, I was employed by the Dallas branch. And the client told one of his buddies over in Louisiana and said, "Hey, you need this deal. They're doing a great job." So the Louisiana client called me and said, "Get on the plane the next day." And I went to my district manager and he said, "No. What does the New Orleans office have to do with the Dallas office?" And I looked at him and said, "Oh, okay." And I went back to my desk and I placed a phone call into a stranger at Strategic Accounts, told him what I had, the opportunity, the profit so far, the growth of potential in the Louisiana and the Southwest region. And he said, "You just work out of the office tomorrow and you fly in with me." And we closed the deal in Louisiana for another 1,000 sites on a white piece of paper the next day.
That is incredible. And then what happened? How did you continue to grow across the rest of the country so fast?
Well, once I was pulled into strategic accounts, that was my sole account to grow. Okay. And they gave me the backing and the wealth and the encouragement and the education to just keep going. My boss, it was Jonathan Berger, who gave me the biggest shot of my life. He really trusted me.
How did that division group respond to you making that transition away from their group so quickly, given that quick exposure?
There was a lot of conversations. There was a group president that was on the service group and a director in particular that tried to stop my promotion, said, we found her. You have no right to take her, no right to pilfer her. And ultimately, I was able to get the promotion. But it was a few tense days. And oddly enough, I received the largest raise in York history at the time, moving from maintenance service sales specialist to a strategic account executive.
That is amazing.
Wake up and grow up now.
That is absolutely incredible. I think just that journey alone, whether someone is working for another organization or starting their own business, to have that transition happen so quick says that, one, you were really, really good at what you did. And we're going to get some of the backstory later. But coming to a new company, you said only 5 months in the business at that time.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a risk because some might think, oh, I'm going to get terminated.
I could have.
Right.
I absolutely could have.
So you kind of playing on that fence a little bit between doing something totally stellar or getting fired.
You know what it was is I had so much trust in the client that gave me the opportunity in Dallas, that when he gave me a recommendation to his peer, for me not to act on that felt wrong. I mean, morally wrong to me that I took the chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and to get that recommendation is such a big deal.
Oh,
that vote of confidence from someone else that's a client.
Yes.
They don't give those out freely.
No.
You have to earn that trust.
And these guys were tough engineers, tough, good old boy engineers.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what happened after Louisiana? Because I know the count kept growing.
It did. We took over. It was St. Louis, and then it shifted. We got the entire East Coast.
Right.
And then we started getting the West Coast as well.
But what kind of revenue was that over the life of?
The first 2 years, it peaked about $7 million. Wow. And then it started growing hugely because they had been acquired by another larger telecommunication office.
Okay.
So at that point, I got all the chillers, all the boilers, all the data centers under contract. At the end, it was about a $60 million account.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the account grew to $60 million nationally. That's a huge amount of money.
It was a very huge amount of money. It absolutely was.
Over how long of many years, number of years?
7 years.
7 years. That's an incredible amount of money as new to the industry. So you were completely new to the HVAC and that construction industry.
Completely new to HVAC. I come from Montana and only the rich people have air conditioning there. So I really didn't know anything about anything, but I come from a family of mechanical engineering leadership. So I must have got some of my dad's intelligence.
And you grew up in a small town, from my understanding. I
did. Missoula, Montana, very small.
What was that like back?
I was raised in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. So it was supreme. I rode my bike all day or, played with my friends. And when mom bellowed, you came home for dinner. Right. You didn't sit inside. Always busy playing, always busy hiking, skiing.
Presume those, though, gave you just some really incredible small town values, right?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. To be able to go to a grocery store and see, 15 people that you know. Right. When I came to Dallas, I didn't realize how much I missed that.
Right.
Yeah, the community is very close.
Now, by the time you reached the HVAC company that you mentioned, you had already had a life as an adult. And you started much later into the corporate world.
I did.
Tell me how that transition took place and why you ended up in business. Because I think that plays into why you were so successful so quick as well. But tell me about your journey.
I had my first baby at 21, last baby at 28, and I was an in-home daycare provider until the year 1998.
Oh, wow.
And in 98, I found a life change and had to go outside the house to start working. So one of the first jobs I took was working at Culligan. Door knocked, literally just knocked on the door and tried to sell, all their services they had.
And that's the water company?
That's the water company.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was a Culligan girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see those trucks all around town delivering the big 5-gallon bottles of water.
They have equipment behind it. So I was really set up for the York job because you sold equipment as well and it had to be installed, had to, look where the main water valves were and such, and then service contracts. Yeah. So it was a really good breeding ground for where I would eventually end up in the HVAC market. In 2002, I moved from Missoula to Dallas, and that's where I started my search. I had done a few things in Missoula. I was a banker, a private banker at one of the banks when I moved here, and I knew that I didn't want to sit behind a desk because I would live a miserable life. So I wanted an outside sales role, and I didn't really choose sales. Sales chose me.
Right.
I've always had the ability to create trust and urgency and conversation with people. So I just used my own natural skills to enter the business world. And I did have some wonderful mentors here in Dallas. I really did.
Now, how did you choose Dallas? When did you leave Missouri, and then how did you choose Dallas as your...
I left Montana in 2002, and I came out here for personal reasons. So I didn't really choose Dallas. Dallas kind of just, was a train that I was on, and here I was. So I've been here ever since.
Now, you alluded to this earlier, but the process for you finding that job once you landed in Dallas was interesting. So you saw a job article
in the Dallas newspaper that said HVAC service maintenance sales, no experience necessary.
Interesting. So you applied.
I applied, and I understand there were quite a few applicants, and they had whittled it down to 3. And I think I got in one. My boss, I think he was humored by my responses. You did what? You were a daycare? You sold Culligan? So when I went in for my interview, I sat in a chair much similar to this, and about 10 minutes later, who would be my boss came out with a young man and walked him out the door, and then said, "Okay, you ready for your interview?" And they were walking in. He said, "I sure hope to hell you're better than that guy." So we get in there, and I told him, I don't know anything about this industry, but I'm willing to learn. I'm a ball of clay, and you can teach me your way. I have no habits, good or bad.
Oh, wow.
And he really liked that answer. So as we were walking out, there was another young man dressed all where I was just an hour ago. Right. And as I walked past him, I reached out my hand. I said, "Hey, I'm Joanne. Good luck in there." And I heard later that he couldn't utter a single sentence.
Oh, no.
So I got the job. Yeah.
That is really fascinating. What's intriguing to me as well, it's great that they put in there no experience necessary.
Yeah.
Because so many positions that are advertised today has such a long laundry list of requirements. And sometimes I think it just takes finding a person with some special gift, kind of in your scenario, and as a manager, a hiring manager, understanding how that gift can help the organization succeed.
Well, as an engineering company, York, very strong, very steeped in engineers.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, they figured out that engineers really aren't salesmen.
Right.
So they thought, okay, it was a new program they put in. Hey, let's just get in pure salesmen. We can teach them the engineering part.
Right. At least teach you how to talk about the engineering part, which is critical.
You ultimately have to understand it. So I'm sure that was a weeding period too, because, other peers, I think there were 25 of us hired. Some will read it out pretty quick. If you can't understand the basics behind the engineering or the componentry of the equipment, you're going to be found out real quick. And, I'm not an engineer by trade, but to speak to an engineer, you have to speak their conversations.
Right.
Yes.
Now, you are an author as well.
I am.
And I'm holding one of your great books here, The Virtue of Honor, Acquiring Truth.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your book? And I know you have a second book that we'll get to as well, but this is a incredible journey that's described in your book. Can you tell our listener about Virtue of Honor?
I can. This book has been in my heart and soul for about 15 years. And I wrote a lot of the peace work on airplanes when I was traveling, across the nation, coming back exhausted. And I realized that I had a knack for writing, and I was writing my own story. I didn't know what to do with the emotions I was feeling inside myself. So I just started putting it down. And I'm
Podcasts are so popular, even monkeys are doing it.
75% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly. That's 210 million people in the United States alone. And yes, podcasts are profitable. Joe Rogan is making $30 million per year. Your content, Your knowledge is worth sharing. Don't just dream it, do it. Visit andycostafilms.com/podcast and turn your content into leaks.
A random train of thought writer. It just all comes out in one session. So the book really explores my life growing up in Montana. And although it was idyllic on the outside, inside it was a home of a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny, and really the name for it would be a lot of emotional abuse.
Right.
And it was later in life, at 62, I actually realized that I have complex PTSD rooted in my childhood, starting from the minute I was born. By the time I could crawl, I knew I wasn't wanted. By the time I could walk, I knew that my opinion, my voice in any situation needed to be squashed down.
Right.
So I write about how trauma really seeps into someone and stays inside you for years. And the things you do to explore when you're not feeling good, like maybe you need to buy the best suits or the best cars or, have the biggest house, you start overcompensating for the trauma that you have inside that says, I'm not good enough.
Right. Right.
And really that was my heart to write the book, is just to let people know that where you were born and where you were, even if that's just yesterday,
Right.
it doesn't have to be your path forward.
Now, over how long of a period of time did you collect those notes while you were traveling, and you were collecting those thoughts and then decided to put it into an actual book? But how long did it take you to really flesh through those ideas and really understand what you were going through?
Well, I did the writing, especially in Act 1, years ago when I was in a really hard place in my life. And I was in a hard place in my emotional life. Outwardly, I was beautiful and shining and successful, but, in the deep of your soul,
Right.
I just had to purge it out. So I started writing probably about 13 years ago. And some of them might just be a paragraph, and some may be an entire story of a moment in time. I write in glimpses.
Okay.
And the glimpses that I wrote all those years ago, I could never replicate today because I'm in such a better place in my heart and my soul. And I'm thankful for those old writings because you absolutely have a reminder of where you were at that time in your life. And I also know that my life isn't that different from anyone else. That when I wrote my sad stories or my stories that I'm not so proud of, that I'm not alone.
Right.
And that's really why I put it out, so people can know that there's other people just like them.
The part of the beauty of having the podcast and the program is that we've met with so many leaders. And it is intriguing to see people, you look at them and they have what appears to be wonderful lives, and they do. They have great cars and families and great business. But deep down inside, they're still struggling with something as well, like you mentioned, that they're trying to overcome.
Yeah.
What's intriguing also about it is that that's probably what's driven them to be so successful. As they
Absolutely.
continue to deal with how it's impacted their lives personally and privately.
I know that I turn pain into profit and trauma into talent.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's incredible how that journey works.
Yeah.
So when did you know that you would actually make a physical book? So you had 13 years of writings and you just decided, okay, now it's time to share it with the world.
Well, I had been roaming around corporate America for about 25 years at this point. And one would think the higher you go in your position and the higher you go in these massive, top tier or global organizations, that life would get easier. And I did not find that to be the case. And there came a time when I sat down and said, Joanne, are you happy? Joanne, can you continue to do this?
Right.
And the answer was really no. My health, my well-being, my sense of peace seemed to be almost destroyed within the corporate walls, especially towards the end of my career. There you can't open LinkedIn today. You can't read any conversation without hearing about, toxic work environments or, how hard it is in the corporate world, or really any job if you have someone that really wants to be toxic. And I just said enough. And walked out and turned.
Wow.
And I opened the consulting group, and that started off really well. But when I said goodbye, I had already probably written 3 or 4 official chapters.
Wow.
And I sat down and wrote the book. It's 400 pages.
Yes.
It's 10 and a half hours of Audible, but I did it, and it just poured out of me.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, and I have to remind those that are listening, Joanne is an incredibly successful business leader. And you think just the one account was $60 million, and you had more than just one account, I presume.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
You were generating a lot of cash flow for the business, and personally, you were successful as well out of it, but there's still kind of that void that you were trying to figure out from your individual personal life perspective.
There was. And, there was a time that York was captured up by another large global giant.
Yes.
And I chose not to stay with that giant.
Right.
And I found my way. I had a couple of years of non-compete, so I sold controls, throughout the nation, retail, which is something I hadn't really played at. And then I moved into Dyke & McQuay, another large HVAC company. And that's really where I started selling the chillers, the pumps, the cooling towers, and just putting projects together from design, build, engineering is fascinating to me. Yes. And I was very good at it because I think of it like a puzzle.
Right.
So I could see the end, and I rebuilt it back.
Right.
So I probably have 1,000 projects under my belt at this point. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'd love to dig more into that business experience and the construction and the valves and controls. And then your second book. But before we speak about that, at 49, you said you had something change.
I did.
Yes.
I did. My life changed. At age 49, I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior. I'd always fancied myself a Christian, always fancied myself a believer. But I didn't know the first thing about grace. I didn't know the first thing about a relationship with the Lord. And for me, He came after me with a skillet. I didn't have a choice. I was going to accept the Lord that evening. And my life changed forever. It's not that I got better, like a better person when I accepted Christ. I was a totally different, completely changed person.
Right.
Total different behaviors. It's like some of my old thoughts that were very detrimental to me were just stripped out of my mind.
Wow.
And really the thirst to start understanding the Bible and the Lord's calling, it became a thirst I couldn't even deny. I was reading my Bible 6 hours a night, just sucking up the stories of Goliath and David and Joseph, stories that I should have known as a little girl, but never had the opportunity. And there was no looking back from that day at all. No.
That's amazing. And then it had just a huge impact, it seems like, on your professional career and trying to decide and figure out still where you were going. And I think you said later on is when you recognized the PTSD portion as well.
I did. It was at 49 when I accepted Christ. I went into the business world with a different perspective. I actually tried to escape the business world. I applied for Dallas Theological Seminary, and I wanted to go into pastoral counseling.
Okay.
I was ready in 2016 to get out of corporate, and it didn't work out. I got a larger, bigger corporate job, and I was like, what are you doing, Lord? You really want me here? But what I did is I turned my angle. When I went out to dinner, instead of, at the time, there was a time in my life I would go out and try and hunt men, pick up men. I felt I needed that hit of affirmation.
Right.
And when I accepted Christ, I hunted in a different way. When they approached me, I would have a conversation with them, and then bam, where is your walk with Christ?
Right.
Where are you with your relationship with Christ? And I started evangelizing at all the hotels and anywhere I went to people that just came up and talked to me for their own reasons,
Right.
perhaps. And I think I've made more men cry in a Marriott bar than anywhere in the world. Yeah, I just started talking about Christ. Well, one night I couldn't hold it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what's been kind of your response as you speak to people about your journey and your book? How are you helping others? What are you seeing their reaction as they shared their version of a similar story with you?
Well, my book talks about childhood abuse. It also talks about domestic abuse
Right.
and the pain of escape of a situation like that and sexual assault. It also talks about how you try and ease yourself with the world, eating too much or not eating at all, doing different things to try and find peace within your soul. So what really came out of all that is the book. And when women talk to me, I hear about their rapes.
Yes.
I hear about their domestic home life. I hear about their children that have turned on them.
Right.
I hear about their loneliness, about their emptiness. And then I also hear the applaud for Christ as well. I had no idea that even in my roughest times, he was with me.
Right.
And in my book, I really spell that out, that even when I was really in very horrible moral shape, physical shape, emotional, spiritual shape, he was always with me. And people read the book and realize that. But my story, it just in church today, an 86-year-old woman watched my documentary in tears and said, "We've lived the same life."
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is the question I was thinking just before you mentioned that, which is intriguing, but how does someone like the 86-year-old woman that you mentioned, how do they get out of that cycle of having dealt with, or maybe not dealt with, the history of those challenges? Like how do you escape that and continue not only surviving, but thriving, because it's just hard, right?
It is very hard. One, it's hard to admit that you have trauma.
Correct. Right.
It's very difficult and then when you go further to admit that you have complex PTSD, which is a mental illness, and you say it without any shame. You say it almost with pride, like, oh yeah, now I can recognize, now I can understand. There's no easy way to unbury trauma. It takes hard work. It takes hard emotional work, hard spiritual work, and takes professional work.
Right.
I could not be here today with the story that I am so willing to tell about my life encased in trauma without professional help.
Right. And Joanne, you're right, they find it hard to talk about, which makes it hard to address. And then it seems like so many people spiral downward versus, you found a way to compartmentalize to some degree, I think, so that you can build your career.
Yes.
And make sure you can, but some others just don't find that ability to balance.
I think my ability to compartmentalize came from a result of my trauma.
Okay.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I was always able, no matter how I was feeling, to put on the smile, to be agreeable, to be accommodating, or to limit myself, limit my voice to keep the calm. And that's all compartmentalizing.
Right.
So yes, I was very compartmentalized, and people do it all the time. The thing people fear is shame.
Right.
They fear their shame.
Yes.
They don't want to talk about their shame. They may tell you a little bit of it, but they don't go into the details. They don't claw it out of them. And I found that it's those little details, those little pieces of shame stick in you like shreds of glass.
Right.
You have got to say them. You've got to have a trusted partner, a trusted therapist, a trusted friend, trusted church group. You must put your shame on the table if you ever want to walk away from it. And it's the hardest thing. For me, it was very difficult to do, And when I finally got there, and I got there because my health was faltering so bad,
oh, wow.
I had no choice but to address what was going on underneath.
Now, I'd love to come back to that. I think we're at our time now, but next time we have you on, I definitely want to explore more about, as you mentioned, putting your shame on the table.
Sure.
Because I think there is something kind of therapeutic about letting it go, sharing it, talking about it, getting it on the table, and then you can move forward.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything that holds you back is time.
This is a unique program just because of having to discuss those items. But I want to end this segment just saying you're an incredible, incredible business leader. And I'm amazed, and I appreciate you being on the program to talk about your business career, but also talk about what's behind it, what's fueled it, what's impacted it, because a lot of people, as you say, are not putting it on the table. So they're not having a conversation about it. So I'm glad that you're willing to discuss that other element of your life and how it's impacted everything from business to your personal life as well.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. Really appreciated being on.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman.
Stay ahead of the curve. Subscribe right now. We will see you at the next episode.